This man is according to certified statements that we get, is a very violent person. They call him the Maryland man. He's a Maryland father. No, this is a violent person.
The Democrat and media outrage over the deportation of Abrego Garcia, an MS-13 El Salvadorian illegal alien criminal who is hiding in Maryland, has been nothing short of despicable. You would think we deported a candidate for Father of the Year.
I will not stop fighting until I see my husband alive. Kilmar, if you can hear me, stay strong. My heart aches for my husband, who should have been here leading our Easter prayers. Stop playing political games with the life of Kilmar.
By now, you've probably heard of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man currently being held in an El Salvador prison after being mistakenly deported. The Trump administration calling his deportation an administrative error, now saying that Abrego Garcia cannot return due to alleged gang ties. So what's really going on? How did we get here? Let's take a look. Abrego Garcia originally immigrated illegally from El Salvador to the U.S. in 2011 when he was 16 to escape gang threats from Barrio 18. His alleged ties to gangs started in 2019 when he was arrested outside of a Maryland Home Depot alongside a group of men. Police handed him to the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the government accused him of being a member of the notorious gang MS-13 based on two main pieces of evidence. The first is that he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie, where officials allege that the clothing indicated that he was a member in good standing of MS-13. Another piece of evidence is an anonymous, uncorroborated source who claims that Abrego Garcia was involved with MS-13 in New York, even though he never lived there. Abrego Garcia has denied any connection to MS-13. Later that year, Abrego Garcia married Jennifer Stefania Vasquez Sura, a U.S. citizen, and they had a child together. An immigration judge later granted him withholding of removal status, shielding him from deportation due to the gang threats he faced in El Salvador. The Department of Homeland Security granted him a work permit, and he lived and worked legally in Maryland while continuing his annual check-ins with ICE. So now this brings us to 2025, where on March the 12th, Abrego Garcia was stopped by ICE officials after picking up his 5-year-old son from his grandmother's house. His wife picked up their son after she says ICE officials told her she had to pick him up within 10 minutes or they would hand him to Child Protective Services. On March 15th, Abrego Garcia was deported to the notorious terrorism confinement center in El Salvador, despite his withholding of removal status. Following his deportation, the White House said that he was mistakenly deported due to a, quote, administrative error, but said that he would not be returning to the U.S., citing his alleged gang involvement and accusing him of human trafficking, but provided no evidence supporting these claims.
The error that you are referring to was a clerical error. It was an administrative error. The administration maintains the position that this individual who was deported to El Salvador and will not be returning to our country was a member of the brutal and vicious MS-13 gang. That is fact number one. Fact number two, we also have credible intelligence proving that this individual was involved in human trafficking. And fact number three, this individual was a member, actually a leader of the brutal MS-13 gang, which this president has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Fact number four is that foreign terrorists do not have legal protections in the United States of America anymore, and it is within the president's executive authority and power to deport these heinous individuals from American communities.
On April 4th, U.S. District Judge Paula Zanise ruled that his detention and deportation violated his right to due process and that the Trump administration must ensure his return to the U.S. The Trump administration appealed this decision to the Fourth Circuit, but their appeal was denied on April 7th. The Trump administration appealed the decision again to the Supreme Court, and on April 10th, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that Abrego Garcia's deportation was illegal and that he must be returned to the U.S.
This case is about the government unlawfully and admitting to unlawfully removing a gentleman from this country, from Maryland, from his home, his family, his children, and taking no actions, no meaningful steps to fix that, as ordered by the Supreme Court in a unanimous decision.
Despite this decision, President Donald Trump and several of his top officials have refused to facilitate his return.
Once someone's out of our country, that becomes the problem of their host country, not our country. These people chose to invade us. So there's a lot of concern from the corporate media about the invaders, but they chose to invade us. It's our responsibility to return them back to where they came from or another country willing to take them.
Steven, is the president going to ask for him to be returned to the United States or not? Like, yes or no?
So first of all, it's not a question for me to answer, but I think that the assumption that underlies the question is what needs to be corrected, which is that there was no mistake that was made. A deportation order means the judge has said he must be deported from the country. He has no right to remain here any longer. He must be removed from the country. So his only options are to be deported to his home country or another country. That's it. There's no other option. He doesn't get to stay here. He doesn't get to live here. He has no future here. He has no right to be here. He's an illegal alien.
In a White House visit, El Salvador President Nayib Bukele is saying that he would not, quote, smuggle Abrego Garcia into the U.S., adding that he doesn't have the power to do so.
How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
The Trump administration claims that the word facilitate in the court decision says that they must remove any domestic obstacles, but does not require the federal government to take steps to bring him back.
Additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
This administration will obey court orders, unlike the last administration. But if you ask me if I'm in favor of returning terrorists to the United States that are gang members, that have murdered and raped young women in this country, no, I'm not in favor of that at all.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration has continued to claim that the U.S. cannot bring Abrego Garcia back because he is now under Bukele's custody.
I don't think any court can order another nation, a sovereign nation, to take a citizen national from their country in their custody and give them back to the U.S. Again, I'm not an attorney. I'll let DOJ argue this in court. But I think we remove the public safety threat, gang member, designated terrorists from the United States who have been ordered deported twice by a federal judge. I think I got plenty of due process.
On April 17th, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador to meet with Abrego Garcia, but he is initially denied entry to the prison.
I told Mr. Abrego Garcia's family I would do everything I could to bring him home, and I'm going to keep working it until he is brought home, because he was illegally snatched off the streets and deported to this prison in El Salvador. My overall purpose here is to send a signal that we are not going to stop fighting for his return until he is actually released.
However, the two were later able to meet at a hotel.
One of the issues here is the refusal of the government of El Salvador to allow Mr. Abrego Garcia to communicate with anybody, not with his lawyer, not with his family. I was the first and, to my knowledge, the only person who he's communicated with since. So I conveyed to his family today for the first time fully the details of that conversation, how much he missed them, how he said thinking of them is what keeps him going. But also we discussed with the family how he has been become a test case for whether or not the Trump administration will trample over the constitutional rights of others who live here.
What the president wants to do is talk about that as if we can't all fight gang violence, which I've been doing for much longer than Donald Trump, right? His argument is you can't fight that and at the same time uphold people's constitutional rights. That's a very dangerous view. And if we deny the constitutional rights of this one man, it threatens the constitutional rights of everybody in America.
According to Van Hollen, Abrego Garcia had been moved from CCOT to a prison in Santa Ana. On April 18th, President Trump shared a photo of Abrego Garcia's hand on Truth Social. showing tattoos of a marijuana leaf, a smiley face, a cross, and a skull, claiming that these tattoos tie him to MS-13. However, a source with ICE says that if he were an MS-13, he would have been required to have a 13 tattoo. The photo was edited to include the characters MS, 1, and 3 on his knuckles, but this could have been a visual aid added by the Trump administration to make its interpretation of the symbols clearer. Judge Zinese later accused the Trump administration of acting in bad faith, but soon after ordered a 7-day pause on her own order from the Trump administration to provide an update on its efforts so far to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return.
Mr. President, you told ABC News yesterday that you could get Abrego Garcia back if you wanted to. Do you think President Bukele would turn you down if you made that request?
I really don't know. I know that he's been a great friend of our country. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him. I really leave that to the lawyers, and I take my advice from Pam and everybody that is very much involved. They know the laws, and we follow the laws exactly.
The highest court in the nation ruled that Kilmar should be returned home. So why are they still waiting? Enough is enough.